Welcome to Rapid Chatter. On today's episode, I have my good friend Hayden Brown to talk about his band Ghidorah, his venture on making this happen, and our love for metal music, and much more. So, Hayden, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Alec. It's been too long.
It has been way too long. It's been a long time since we were singing Selena Gomez songs on your last day at
Oh,
FYE.
fuck that.
A lot has happened since then.
I do remember singing that song just because it was every 5 minutes we heard it.
yeah, because out of the two mix CDs that we had.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my god, I have nightmares from that stuff still. I cannot listen to that Taylor Swift album. Like not that I would, but it's just if I hear it, I get PTSD.
That's fair. Well, I want to thank you for being on here. This is as of recording this podcast, that you're the first guest, so should feel a little honored, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to you and Jake before. I guess you probably haven't had any guests since, because I listened to all of those.
Nope. Nice. Yeah, it was just me and him. So this is
I am honored.
Guest on the show. And what I wanted to have you on here for today, like I mentioned in the intro, is just kind of like, after FYE and stuff, and how you got into music, and then you forming your band with your friend Ian, and kind of going from that. So I guess my first question for you would be, what got you into music? And why the bass?
Oh yeah, we're going way back then. So that was actually before we even met. And did you know I played bass back then?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because
okay,
I know that from the onset of meeting you, I knew that you were already neck deep into music.
Yeah, okay. Because I was always switching out the CDs at the FYE, playing Megadeth and Pantera and stuff that I shouldn't be. But so back in high school, so I should go back even further. Back in middle school, I grew up with classic rock. That was the best radio station around here in the Flint area. 103.9 The Fox. And, I got super into bands like Van Halen and Aerosmith and Black Sabbath and stuff. So, in the years of LimeWire, I started downloading those types of bands and stuff. And then one of my first concerts ever was Aerosmith. And I think I got a little bit secondhand high there on, just from standing next to someone. And I was I don't know, 15 or something. And I was watching them play Sweet Emotion, and I felt like this was at DTE, in Clarkston, Michigan, a big amphitheater here. So I was watching them play Sweet Emotion, and I felt like I just zoomed in.
Got the tunnel vision type of thing.
And just started watching Tom Hamilton play that intro on the bass, and I was like, I want to play bass. So I got a bass eventually, and as time went on, I was wanting to challenge myself more, because like I said, back then I was really into Aerosmith and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, and I really liked playing those riffs. And there's a lot of music, sort of either pop rock or pop, and it's just very repetitive, especially for a bass player. And that's not very fun to me, even though some of those songs can be really great. Looking at AC/DC or U2 or something, the bass is just so simple. So as I started getting more and more into this, I started looking up best bass songs, best guitar songs, best drum songs. I would go onto all these forums on the internet, and I would start seeing, a bunch of names popping up, the same names popping up, like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Black Sabbath, and, Pantera, stuff like that, Slayer. So I started getting into that. And I think, honestly, people our generation, we're approaching 30.
Ugh.
Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero came around. Yeah. Guitar Hero came around, kind of before anyone was playing music our age, and it really introduced a lot of people to hard rock and heavy metal.
Yeah.
And I would love playing that game with my friends in middle school, and so metal started creeping into my life like unintentionally. And like just because I wanted more of a challenge once I finally did get a bass, which I was 17. So I've been playing for 11 years. Actually, like 11 years in like 2 or 3 weeks from now, because I got my bass for Christmas. Of 2009. So where was I going with that? So yeah, I was just looking for more and more of a challenge, and I went off to college in 2010, and there you kind of get thrown into this whole different situation where you're away from all the friends you made in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had a lot of free time. So I was just like, yeah, even like, I ran track at Grand Valley, and that took a lot of time, and my classes were hard, but not really that hard. They were a lot of, remedial stuff, for freshmen.
Because you went to school for film, right?
Yeah, filmmaking.
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of those.
But I didn't even have any film. Right. They were, but I didn't even have any film classes my first semester. So I was, doing like these, like I said, kind of remedial gen ed classes and
like
running track. Yeah, it was stuff like that. I had like psychology, and I just sat in class and drew all the time because I didn't need to. I had psychology literally the year before, so I just remembered what I learned in high school. Yeah. And then, so anyway, I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent with that. But so I had this time, and I just practiced my bass all the time. And, you start making a couple of friends your first year of college, but if they're busy or, it's a late night or whatever, I just started playing my bass, and I got pretty good at it. And then actually the summer after my freshman year was really interesting time in my life. I needed a job, just kind of a summer gig. And my aunt and uncle who lived in Dayton, they kind of needed someone to help with their kids, my cousins, and they were 15 and 13 and 8. So like none of them could drive. My aunt was getting her master's or her doctorates over at Purdue, which was, over in Indiana. Yeah. So, and then my uncle, he's a doctor. So he was always busy on call, weird hours and stuff. So they were like, we'll pay you to come live here and help take care of the kids, take them to, their friend's house, or take them to the airport to go see their grandma, or, take them to their,
so
my cousin
like the
was
surrogate,
yeah,
like dad in a way, or
yeah,
like a man nanny if you want to go that route. But
right, but yeah, I was only 18 at the time, and I turned 19 in the middle of that summer, and like going back down there, I didn't have any friends, so all I did was work out and play my bass, and then I would, in the spots I needed to help out my family, and and one really interesting thing happened. So I didn't have a car at this time, and my uncle had this old, I don't even know what it was, some kind of green sedan, but it was like one of his first cars. And, I got familiar with some of the radio stations down there, but he had 3 cassettes in this car. And yeah, cassettes, not CDs, they were cassettes.
cassettes.
One was a Rush cassette, but the Rush cassette was screwed up somehow. I couldn't listen to it. The other one was a bootleg that he recorded himself sometime in the 80s. On the first side was Judas Priest's Defenders of the Faith. Okay. Yeah. And on the other side was Iron Maiden's Power Slave. So awesome, right? Yeah. So I was listening to like bootleg made by my uncle all the time with these two great bands and great albums. And then the other cassette was the 1988 Elektra reissue of Metallica's first album, Kill 'Em All. And on this reissue, there were two bonus tracks that were originally B-sides, and it was Blitzkrieg and Am I Evil? So I got like this full, original Metallica recordings package, along with all of Kill 'Em All and those two B-sides. And I could not tell you how many times I listened to that album. And it had the automatic flip over feature. So you listen to the one side and then it would flip over. So it just kept rotating. It's listening.
Like, Hayden, please stop.
I'm sure my cousins can tell you how much I listened to that album as I carted them around, or sometimes I'd drive back up to, my hometown, Fenton, Michigan. And that's like a 4-hour drive. So I would just listen to that like 4 times through.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was such a good time. But, those riffs and, kind of unintentionally, the very first thrash riffs, thrash metal riffs, just like ingrained themselves in me. And I was like, this is so cool. I need to learn how to play these songs. And so I started learning the Four Horsemen was actually the first one, which is kind of stupid of me because that's the longest one. But, I just really love that middle riff where it goes, which is also kind of funny because, every metalhead knows that song was written by Dave Mustaine, called The Mechanics, on his own first release. But that riff in particular was not his creation, and it's not on his version of it. So it's like my favorite part was the part that wasn't written by him, even though I do love Dave Mustaine and everything he's done with Megadeth. But so I learned that song when I was still living there with my uncle. And then, it was time for me to go back to college, and I was learning Am I Evil? And I remember this very distinctly because I was playing these Metallica songs so much on my bass, and I was playing so much, I broke my E string, which, breaking strings on a bass is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, because those suckers are thick, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Like guitarists, they'll break their strings all the time, but I just broke the biggest string on my bass. And like, like I mentioned before, I didn't have a car. I, had just done this one summer job and didn't have another job at school or before that summer. So, like $25 for a new set of strings was kind of difficult. And these were the days before like Amazon Prime, so I couldn't even just order it and have it sent to me. I had to like find a way to get to Guitar Center. So this is fall of 2011 now, right when I broke this E string. And in my first class, and this was one of my very first film classes, I met Ian. And right away, very first day, we accidentally sat next to each other. We didn't know each other or whatever. And in the class, they have you do that dumb thing where you have to stand up and say 3 things about yourself,
So the like, very typical icebreakers, like, Alec, I play video games and sit on my ass all day, like that.
Right, yeah, exactly, like that. And so he stood up and he said, I'm from Grand Haven, Michigan, and I play guitar, and I think he said he was a wrestler or something. Mm-hmm. And, I got up and I was like, yeah, I'm from Fenton and I run track here and I play bass. And, I sat back down, and then right when I sat down, he's like, you play bass? He's like, what kind of stuff do you play? And I was like, I don't know, like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and stuff. And, I did just start learning Am I Evil by Metallica, or, their cover of it. It's originally Diamond Head. And he was like, oh, you play Metallica?
Oh, so yeah, I bet in his head, it was that gif of from Step Brothers where it's like, did we just become best friends? Yep.
Right. Well, see, here's the thing, though. He didn't know that I had just started playing these songs. And Ian, he began his whole musical journey as a metalhead. Like, his parents love metal. His dad is a big metalhead. His mom's favorite song is One by Metallica. You know? So, yeah, very, like, different than my own family and how I was brought up. Like, oh, I got to tell this story after I tell how I met Ian, but yeah, so I met him and he was like, we got to jam sometime. And, you know, me, I had this dinky little amp. It sounded like a goddamn trumpet. Like, it was just not good.
Like all tinny and stuff.
Yeah, it was like, you know, the bottom of the barrel. Like, I don't even know who would have thought this was a good idea, but it was enough to like learn some songs.
Five Below of amps.
Yeah. And so I was like planning on buying this new amp, but the other problem was I didn't have an E string. And, you know, so he's like wanting to jam. He's like, hey, we got to jam sometime. And I was like, yeah, we can jam sometime.
I just need money to get this E string in.
Yeah, and like I didn't even mention anything, and I should have because Ian had a car. He's 2 years older than me, actually. But so eventually, like, so Ian made a smart choice, and he got out of the film school. he was in the class for like 2 weeks, and we became really good friends in those 2 weeks. But he, you know, switched his major to something more business-like. I honestly don't know what his job is. And we talk like every day.
It's like one of those jobs where you ask them what they do and they're like, I might as well just say accounting because that's the easy answer or something like that. Oh, snap.
Right, yeah. I mean, I know he does something with software.
Something with money and software, and he makes the dollars.
Right, yeah, and he works from home. I do know that, and he was previously traveling a whole bunch, but obviously pandemic said no to that this year.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, so the fall went on, and Ian got out of these classes, and I kept him in mind, though, because one of our assignments was to interview someone interesting, someone with a talent or something. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get Ian and he's going to play guitar for us. And I don't think I'd ever even heard him play guitar yet. Mm-hmm. And I got a couple of, you know, group members for this class, and we went and did this project and went and interviewed Ian, you know, kind of the same way you're interviewing me. And you know, we just asked him who his influences were and why he started playing guitar. And then he played Holy Wars by Megadeth. You know, I think that's his absolute favorite song. Megadeth is his favorite band. So yeah, and that, you know, kind of was like, oh man, I really need to step up my game and like, you know, start practicing these songs.
Kind of lit a fire in you. Like you wanted to get it even better.
Yeah. So I don't remember how, but eventually I bought a big ass amp, and then I got strings. You know, I was able to restring my bass finally after like a month or so of not being able to play. Mm-hmm. And then he finally came over and we jammed, and that's just, you know, how we got all started. You know, our friendship started that way, and then through knowing Ian, he's the one that really pushed me into, you know, heavier stuff. Like he would just send me random death metal songs. And like, I don't know if he was like purposely doing that, but I remember one of them was Death, and like, you know, the band Death, and Chuck Schuldiner and, you know, all of his guys and whatever. And I had never heard of them or listened to them at that point. And I listened to it and I was like, wow, that's scary. But, you know, like no one goes from listening to Metallica to death metal.
Yeah, that's
Cannibal Corpse and stuff.
Yeah, because I don't know all of the subgenres of metal, but I imagine that's quite a jump going from like Metallica, like mainstream metal, to like.
Yeah, and you know, I love that you said Metallica is mainstream because they totally are. Like they're the biggest metal band in the world. But there was a time where that wasn't true. They
Yeah.
were just as underground as Ghidorah is right now. And, it was really the turn of the decade in the 80s and 90s where they went above ground, and
Oh yeah.
all the rest of metal did too. And yeah, it's a really interesting journey that metal has taken. But yeah, there's the bands that everyone kind of knows from the radio, Metallica and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and stuff, and like it's a lot more approachable than bands like Cannibal Corpse and Death and Death Clock and stuff. So, but Death Clock and Metalocalypse is actually what got me into that type of stuff. Ian, through his little subliminal, like, hey, listen to this, but it was Death Clock. And I remember listening to them my freshman year of college, and I was like, no, too scary.
Right. Yep.
But once I kind of learned it was just like this comedy show and the lyrics were just so goofy that I was like, I could actually focus on the instrumentation. And like, I was really impressed with Brendan Small's guitar work. And honestly, Brendan Small is such a huge influence on me and my writing and my playing. And he's also, a film guy because he's behind all of Metalocalypse, and he was behind Home Videos, and even his most recent stuff, he did a couple music videos for Galacticon 2, and they're all really well done, like practical special effects and stuff. It's really interesting. So yeah, I kind of like connected with this creator of things because, like we established, I was in film school and really getting into metal, and then there's this metal guy who's also creating films and stuff. So I was like, hey, there's like some crossover here.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, that was kind of how Ian and I came to being how we are. And obviously, like I said, the more I explored metal, the more I found I liked. And, I could go through every decade and say, 10 different artists that I like from that decade that really have influenced me and my tastes and my playing and stuff. So yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I guess from there, because I know you and I started working together in, oh gosh, I want to say, was it 2014? I want to say, I think that was my
around. Yeah, because I was graduating that winter, and when I took that job at FYE, it was the summer before my final semester.
Okay, and I gotta ask, like, how in the hell did you end up there? Because, like, was
at
it just
FYE?
like, yeah, like, was it like, you're like, oh, they sell music, or like, hey, it's a job? Like, I'm just curious.
So I had a job at that point in time. I was working at Meadows Crossing, an apartment complex right next to Grand Valley. And I was doing maintenance. And I had done that for like 2.5 years, mostly worked during the summer. They knew I was in track, so they let me, kind of make my own schedule during the school year. But I was still like, sometimes I was on call where I had to unlock doors for people that, lost their keys, or I would close the hot tub in the pool or whatever. So I had been doing that for a while, and I kind of just got fed up with it. Like I had been there, I was the most senior person, and I was still making $8 an hour because, minimum wage back then was like $7. And
this is bad.
Yeah. So like it seemed like everyone kind of went through this same course. So even like my previous coworkers who had quit, they just, the management kind of just treated you like you were new. And after a while, that gets kind of old, especially if you've been there for 2 years or more. So exactly. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Like, I need a change of scenery. And like, I was in the process of moving downtown that summer, to Grand Rapids instead of over in Allendale. And I was like, all right, I have a car now. I'm living in a different spot. It's time for a new job. So I just I went to the mall one day and I walked in. I was like, hey, you guys have And the guy at the counter was like, yeah, actually we are. Go online and, I'll write your name down so we can get you in here. Sure enough, like, the interview went real well. You remember Jason, our boss, like he's from the town next door to Fenton, actually, Holly.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, we kind of connected a little bit over, being from the same area, and, things worked out and I got in there. And then you came along about maybe a month later or something.
Yeah, because I was part of the seasonal hires.
So you came in even further down the line.
Yeah, because I think it was like the fall of 2014. I want to say like November-ish area, because I remember because one of my first shifts was the Black Friday shift. So.
Oh wow! Yeah, for some reason I was thinking you were there even before that, I guess.
Nope.
So yeah, that's how I ended up there. I just wanted a different job, and they were like, "Hey, we'll hire you."
Perfect. And then,
but yeah, I did like working with music, but my God, I did not realize how much that would make me hate some of that music.
Because obviously we had to play like the mainstream stuff that wouldn't offend anybody, type of thing. So just your classic stuff.
And what I think is so interesting about that is that, this is a music store, sure. Why don't we play all kinds of music? Because people come to this store looking for stuff that they can't just find anywhere. Like you can find Taylor Swift's album everywhere. At that point in time, iTunes was going strong, Spotify existed, YouTube Music existed, like all these, juggernauts of streaming and stuff. And a lot of people did buy albums digitally. So a lot of people would come in there looking for rock or metal or, random country stuff sometimes.
Yeah, like even more different. Of the indie stuff.
Yeah. And like I barely remember people buying pop music there. Like it was always people buying rock music.
Yeah, and I lost my mind when I had a customer come up and was buying a 10 Years album, which is like my favorite band.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, I remember we had a lot of rap people. I remember a lot of rap people coming in. But even that, you couldn't always get right anywhere you wanted to. It wasn't like the ubiquity of pop music. And, we were, for the audience, we were required to play these, corporate assigned CDs. That was like whatever, the top 10 on the Billboard charts were at that time.
Yeah, like and, the top 40.
Oh my God. Charts, and we could not, we had a 5 CD changer and we could not switch those things unless corporate said. And every other location, they would put the used CDs that they took in from trade-ins into the CD player. But our location was different because that was where the district manager's office was, and we didn't want to offend him.
Yep.
So eventually I became an assistant manager, and sometimes I was managing the store by myself, and I would fuck it, I'm putting in whatever I want. And, I would play Metallica and Megadeth and Pantera and Black Sabbath and, these bands that have been around for decades.
And especially it worked out because the days that you mostly like open or close or whatever were on Sundays. When is the district manager going to come in on a Sunday? No. So it was always party time on Sundays.
Yeah. Sundays, Thursdays were also the only time I was the only manager. So yeah, like anytime I was the only manager at the store, I was playing something good. And you know what? Customers loved it. Yeah. I couldn't tell you how many times I saw people come in and they're like, "Oh my God, I never thought I would hear Megadeth in here. This is crazy." Yeah. In my 20 years of coming into this store, I've never heard something like this, and someone came in and that literally happened. And someone came in and was like, "Wow, I haven't heard this Metallica CD in a decade," and I was playing like Reload or something.
Yeah.
But
and I even remember with some of the other like not quite as big rock bands that you would play, I would have the one or two people come up and be like, "Oh, who's playing right now?" or something like that. And I'd be like,
like imagine that, playing some more diverse music. People want to know what it is. And So, and they appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Customers in there than just pop music fans. And in fact, I would say most of our customers were not pop music fans.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely had a demographic, like a major demographic, and it wasn't pop music. I think you're right. It was mostly rock and rap. I would say
yeah,
ones.
Yeah, exactly. And then we had so many old people coming into that store just because it was a DVD store as well as a music store, and at that point in time, it was like, who's buying DVDs? Everyone just buys stuff online,
Yep.
So.
Or I can't remember if you were there anymore when this happened, but we even had people. Obviously, you would probably know this too, but we finally caught someone that was literally taking the stuff off of our shelves and selling it back to us.
I don't know if I was there for that, but
we saw her do it. It was obvious.
I did have to, bring in that stuff that was obviously stolen from elsewhere. There was one of them, there was the Meyer thing, it was still in the Meyer bag, and it still had the Meyer stickers on it.
Yeah, it had all the cellophane wrap on it,
but you can't accuse someone of something unless you have definitive proof that they stole it. So even if someone was coming in with 10 copies of the latest DVD or Blu-ray release, whatever, I guess I hope the cops catch you eventually.
Yep. And then going off of the FYE journey.
Yeah.
Because you left around, I want to say, what was it? I feel like it was before 2016, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was definitely before, because I moved back to Fenton in summer of 2015. So I left FYE before Easter of 2015, because at that job, again, thanks capitalism, I was making $9 an hour as an assistant manager.
Peanuts.
Yeah. And oh my God, I just had to deal with so much shit there. So many dumb customers, so many, I was in charge of checking in inventory and making sure pricing was right, and dealing with dumb customers and counting for all the money in the registers, and then making bank deposits, and managing a team of the staff when I was the only manager there. And it's Jesus Christ, $9 an hour. I should have been getting paid 3 times that for doing all that there. So
you definitely had to herd some cats there, because even when I was working, and this would have been 6 years ago, so I was 21, 22, I was still the oldest associate. As far as because you're most of the time we would have 16 to 18-year-olds or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Just high schoolers.
Yeah.
So and Brian, he left a little bit later than I did, but we worked at that bar for a little bit.
That's right, Rockwell's. I forgot about that.
And then after that, I moved back home because I was a recent graduate, and recent graduates can't afford anything, so I had to once my apartment, or not my apartment, my house lease. I was living with Ian that year, actually, in downtown Grand Rapids. After that year, I had to move back across the state and try to figure things out. So I was back into my home of, and then actually that year I joined a band too. As soon as I came back, it was one of my high school friends was like, "Hey, you play bass, and you play bass well." He saw some video of me playing Five Magics by Megadeth, and he invited me to be in his band, and he's like, "Yeah, I want you in this band. It's a metal band, and this and that." And this was one thing I wanted to, bring up about, the history of what we've done, because this was the first of 3-ish different bands that I was in with this guy, and each one kind of just fizzled out. And I've got nothing against the guy. He's got a great ability in music. He can play so many instruments. He can teach every instrument. He can, he was actually a music professor. He had, his master's in, composing or something. And just all around, super knowledgeable about music. And this is what we kind of mentioned earlier. There's so many different subgenres of metal. So like Ian and I were big fans of, like your classic like Black Sabbath metal, thrash metal from, the 80s with Metallica and Slayer and all them. We like death metal, we like doom metal, we like, Viking metal with Amon and stuff, like whatever you want to, call all that. And in the 2000s, there kind of emerged a couple of different other styles of metal, and I would say that metalcore was really big, like Killswitch Engage and Bullet for My Valentine. So there's that kind of metal. And then right around that same time, there was, these kind of radio metal bands like Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace, stuff that you would hear on the radio that you wouldn't necessarily call rock, because it's a little bit heavier. It's got some nice,
it's kind of
nice
like
riffs in there.
Kind of like an in-betweenish area.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that's where Tim's mind was, my friend, the one that invited me into this band. And I think, just being in that, he had his idea of what we wanted to do, and I had my idea. And it was, if you've heard my songs, you've listened to them.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely, and this is actually a good question now that you're talking about this. What would you define Ghidorah's like genre of metal or subgenre of metal?
Yeah, and that's something that I've actually been struggling to come up with an answer for too. Because when I listen back to it, I hear elements of doom metal. I hear elements of thrash metal. I hear, in the vocals, it comes very clear, the death metal style. Mm-hmm. And, there's definitely some progressive metal elements too. I come up with riffs and I don't necessarily know what time signature they're in, or,
Yeah, because there was a couple songs I listened to. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just
go ahead.
There was a couple songs I listened to that, it had like a very, like, see, I'm very uneducated when it comes to metal, like the subgenres, but like it had a very, I think it was it might have been Blood Moon Ritual or the ancient
Casket of Ancient Winters.
Yeah. It might have been that one where I was listening to it and it was like very like somber and kind of like slow at first, and then there's like a change towards like the end of the song where it gets like really going.
Yeah. Blood Moon Ritual starts slow. Casket of Ancient Winters ends on like a slower riff. Even Counterfeit Mummies is really not that fast paced, especially on the verses. But yeah, it's like, there's fast parts and there's slow parts. Like I play with tempo a lot. I play with time signatures a lot. Like Counterfeit Mummies, I think, has the most time signature changes. It starts in 4/4. And I think it stays there for a while, but I know that there's a measure of 5/4 in one of the riffs, which is a really odd time signature. Then part of the song is in 3/4, and that alternates with measures of 6/4. And it's like,
dang.
Yeah. And when I come up with these things, that's not like I know that that's what that is. I just like wrote something and thought it sounded cool, and then
it sounds cool, so
it worked. And then I put it all together. And an educated music person will be able to pick out those changes and stuff. And like, even if you're headbanging along to it, at those spots where it shifts, it's like, wait, my headbanging is off now. Yeah, so that in Casket of Ancient Winters, there's 4/4, and then there's a section of 3/4, and then it goes back to 4/4, and I think that one mostly stays in 4/4. There might be an odd measure somewhere. Blood Moon Ritual, there's I think a measure of 2/4 in there, and then there's the whole section where it's in 3. It's just, I don't know. There's definitely some progressive elements to it too. So looking at that, like, like I said, I think we're kind of carving out our own style that's based upon all of the things that we like, and I would say there's, some of my favorite progressive groups are Dream Theater and Mastodon and Gojira. And, obviously, like, Ian and I really have a huge love for Metallica and Megadeth, and, the kind of the big dinosaurs of metal like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. So we have a whole different thing of, stuff coming together. Some songs might sound more like one genre than the other.
And I think that's good to do. I think that's good to do.
Yeah, it'll diversify our sound a little bit, and people can say, "Oh, I really like this one," or "I really like that one," or "I really like all of them." What was I going to say?
Oh yeah, sorry, I kind of threw you off a little bit, but
yeah, no, you're good.
With the other bands with your friend Tim, right?
Yeah, my friend Tim, and he was always so well connected too. So he had big connections to the music scene in like the Detroit area, and we played a few shows with the previous band I was in with him, and good group of guys. But I think even that we still had, it was like too many cooks in the kitchen, because Tim had come to me and he was like, "Hey man, I'm sorry that the last band fizzled out." It always kind of seemed like, eventually I stopped pushing for the things I wanted, and then the whole thing would just kind of fizzle out. And then he invited me into another one, and I was like, all right, let's, make it heavy this time. But even still, he was giving, a lot of my suggestions and my songs a shot. And, the band learned one of my songs, Doppelganger. And I had actually been working on Blood Moon Ritual before that band kind of, dissolved. And sorry. And we had another guy who was writing songs. Actually, our drummer wrote 2 really great songs, and he was definitely more like a Dream Theater type guy. And then Tim was more like the Breaking Benjamin type guy. And then our other guitarist, Jalen, he was a lot of like a periphery type guy. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah, he was,
you got a lot of different styles going on.
Yeah, he loved that, like, kind of mathy progressive type stuff. And I was like, my song Doppelganger, to me it sounded like a Slayer song. And it was just like, when we were playing these shows, and we had a couple songs that were not even originally metal songs. They were songs that Tim had left over, and our other guitarist, Xavier, had left over from other groups that they were in where they were just rock bands. So we had like, this bluesy song, and then this kind of upbeat, more pop rock kind of song, and then like a standard, 3 Days Grace sort of rock song, and then like a progressive metal song, and then like a Slayer song. And it was like,
it's like we schizophrenic bands.
Yeah, and we had like too many cooks in the kitchen, and all the time I was telling Tim, I was like, make it heavier. Like, I've gotten such great responses from the crowd, and like everyone was coming up to me saying they love Doppelganger, and stuff like that. And the other heaviest song I think we were doing at the time was the one from the drummer, and like everyone was saying they loved that, and I was like, Tim, we got to get heavy. People like it.
Yeah, so you were like the one that you were to Tim as Ian was to you, with like, come on, here's the heavier stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. But I was definitely, I don't know, I don't want to say Tim was resistant to it, but he had his idea of what he wanted, and he wanted to do his idea. And I was like,
creative differences, and there's no hard feelings either way, type of thing.
Right. And like, when I formed Ghidorah, like shortly after Extremists was the name of the previous group. When I formed that and I told him about it, I was like, hey man, like, no hard feelings, but he had already created his own other group. And I was like, okay. But he like kind of pitched it to everyone as it was going to be a side project. And, with the pandemic starting at that point in time, we hadn't really been doing anything, and I had a really tough semester. I'm currently getting an MBA at U of M Flint, and
How's that?
yeah, I've been working on that for a couple of years, but I had a real tough semester, and like we ran out of material to be posting on our social media, and then the pandemic happened, and then our drummer had a baby, and like it was like all this stuff happened all at once.
Good
and
old
it was
domino
like,
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was like obviously that this project wasn't really going to go forward. And I was, I don't want to say I was frustrated with the direction that the previous band was going. But like I said before, it was like too many cooks in the kitchen. Stuff wasn't getting done kind of at the pace that I wanted. I wasn't really a fan of all of our own songs, And so it had been growing in my mind that I want to do something on my own. And Tim actually took the first step to do something on his own. And he started actually like releasing some of the songs that we had been playing as Extremists. And I was like, oh, okay. So it is done, just so that we're all clear. And yeah, but like I said, before we started the podcast, I talked to him yesterday for hours. We were talking about music and politics and how things are going, and he's helped me out with certain things here and there. And it's like there's absolutely no hard feelings between anyone in the band, I don't think. And we're helping each other out with our current projects, so that's really kind of him, and yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm grateful for the experience, but it really, kind
of opened your eyes with what you want to do.
Yeah. So before the pandemic happened, this was about January, and I was in a class that was, I don't even remember the name of it now, but it was all about like the internet and how the internet is conducting business, how you conduct business on the internet these days. And right around that same time, I read this interview from Billy Corgan, from the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, yeah. Love the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, it was a quick interview. And a lot of what he said in that interview was really in line with what I was thinking. So with Extremists, we had played a bunch of shows, like too many damn shows all in a row, like it started off really great. Like we played this, mini festival at the Crowfoot, and the Crowfoot's an amazing venue in Pontiac. Our second show, we opened up for Marty Friedman, like the former guitarist from Megadeth, which, is Ian's favorite band. And like, a lot of people do say that was the best era of Megadeth. And that was just an incredible show. And we opened up for Anvil, the thrash band from thrash or speed metal, whatever you want to call them, from Canada. And they've been around forever too. And that was a great show. But then we started doing some other shows, with only local bands playing at the Token Lounge. And we headlined one. And I don't know, we just weren't like drawing very much of a crowd. And I was like, why are we playing these shows? We're like losing money on this stuff. Cause it was just kind of silly. And there was one show, my God, it wasn't our idea, but we were invited to go do it. And it wasn't, we weren't responsible for any tickets. We were just going to split the door. But this other band organized this show. I don't remember their name. And they had us and like some band from Frankenmuth on the bill. And this band from Frankenmuth played first, and they were like, I don't even know, they were just like goofing around on stage. Like they'd play half a song and then be like, oh, we don't know the rest of it. Oh, I was like, how did you get awkward. This gig? Yeah. And then they were like done, and everyone in the room was like, okay. And I kid you not, the only person who paid to get in the door that day was my dad. And my dad had come to every one of our shows. He was like the one consistent person that came to all of our shows.
He was your groupie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really thankful that my dad did that. But, like nobody got anyone else to come, not even the people who organized this event. And like, what are we going to do? Split my dad's $5 between 30 people or whatever? Because, I mean, it wasn't 30. It was like, 10 between the three bands that were there. But yeah, that's not
Gosh.
really gonna fly. So, and
No.
yeah, this other band played, and they were an interesting group. They had a really great guitarist, a female singer, and the bass player hurt his back, so he was sitting the whole time. And they had a drum machine, and I was like, I mean, this is cool, but maybe not the best time for you guys to be organizing a gig, know? So we we kind of just used it as a practice show. And so there was like a few too many events like that where we were just playing to like the other bands and my dad. And
it just things weren't going the way you wanted to. It just was kind of like you were starting to see the trouble.
Right. So between like, this business model, I guess, and the problem with, the songs themselves that I was having, and I was like, guys, let's just like fucking cover Walk by Pantera. People love that song. Like just rip it out, or something.
Yeah.
And like, I couldn't get the group to really, do that. We did eventually cover Walk at some point. We did a couple of cool covers. We did a surprise cover of Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine once. Everyone loved that. That was such a good show. Everyone loved that show.
I think I saw that video on Facebook or something.
There was a really good turnout for that show, and that was one of the good ones. But like I said, we had just done that a few too many times, and we weren't getting any recordings done. People were begging us for recordings of these things. And eventually we got my song recorded, which became our only song after our drummer left the band and took his song. So we had just my song out there for a while. And I want to say that we got another one done before this all kind of fell apart. Yeah, we did. Tim actually wrote a really cool song called Doggie Dog, and it was like right in line with all that I wanted. But, I really had to like push him to get that, But anyway, back to this Billy Corgan interview. So this was January 2020, and I read this thing, and he was saying it's pointless to go play at the clubs down the road. This isn't 30 years ago when you went out and people were at the bars. People were at these shows because it was just the thing to do back in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And, the early 90s, I guess. And, like people don't just go say, oh, who's playing tonight? There's not like that demand for local talent, unfortunately. Even in Grand Rapids, which is a much bigger city than some of these places that we were playing, they have so many great music venues. But, I never walk by the Pyramid Scheme and just go see whoever's playing. I never walked by the Founders or something because they always had, live music there. I was never there to see the band, and that's unfortunate because like it created such a different culture for how to become successful. So it's kind of the opposite, where before bands would write their material and they would play these shows, and they would play shows and hope somebody notices them and say, hey, come record an album with us or something.
Yeah.
Now it's, so much technology is in the hands of the creator, and so much, reach through the internet is in the hands. Now you have to create the music first, make sure it's like really polished. So even like my demos that I have out now aren't going to cut it. And that's, in the future, we have plans for that. But yeah, so he said the thing to do is create the music first and push it out yourself, push it all over the world and as far as you can. And then hopefully someone likes you enough and you start getting some popularity that way. And then you start playing the shows, and people will come see you because they already know what they're getting into.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that kind of mentality, that stuck with me. And in February, I had called up Ian and I asked him if he wanted to do this thing with me. And I was like, we'll figure it out as we go. I'll do the vocals if I have to, because I had never done vocals until the day I recorded the vocals for Blood Moon Ritual. Like until then, I was just, doing stuff in my car, singing along to like Opeth and Death Clock and stuff like that. So, I'm very inexperienced in that regard. And, I think I do a passable, version of what I want, but I've gotten compliments for it.
Yeah, because to be honest, and I'm a little bit biased, but like I didn't know it was you at first.
Oh, really?
When I was singing it. I'm like, I think it's just two guys, so it's there's a 50-50 shot, but it doesn't sound like me.
Yeah, that's really funny. And I've been doing the drums. I've been learning a lot about just these instruments that I don't play in order to get this done. And Ian's all aboard, and Ian's a great guitarist. He can pretty much play anything I throw at him. And it's really, coming along. And we actually, this was one thing that we were going to talk about is the pandemic. And that really threw a big wrench in everything. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, so we actually came up with a plan, and me being in business school, I had like this whole, like 6-month plan. Like we're going to record all this right now, and then we're, month after month, and we're going to, have the YouTube set up and the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, and we were going to get together and do photo shoots and all that stuff, everything that a band would do, even though it's just the two of us right now. And then maybe, we'll get these demos out, maybe play a couple shows and get some of that experience under our feet. And Ian has never played a show live. He's never done that. And that's something that I know he really wanted to do for like his 30th birthday, and which passed in November. And unfortunately, thanks to COVID, all of that got pushed back, and we haven't played a show. We haven't even gotten the other band members yet to, because obviously on stage I can't play 3 instruments at once, counting vocals. Right? Yeah, I can't play the drums and the bass and sing all at the same time. But yeah, so we really got pushed back, because then it was like, when are we going to be able to get together, because it's not safe to be around people, and
you're trying to do all this remotely.
Because we were like, how do we back and forth? How do we, because like the project files can get pretty big. How do we record? Because at this point in time, Ian didn't have like a direct input, and he didn't have Logic himself. And I didn't have a microphone. This is the microphone I use to record the vocals, and it's Ian's. But yeah, so there's just like all these questions all of a sudden. And then in March, that was when, the first like lockdown happened. And I was laid off temporarily at first. And then in May, I was told that I wouldn't be returning to work. So that really sucked, and it really just, upended all of like, what do I do now? I was still in school, so I could focus on that. And there was like a little silver lining in there, because I do own my own weight rack and stuff, so I could actually start like, I told you I had a really rough semester that semester where I had to really pay attention to my classes, and I was able to like, without having a full-time job at the time, do my workouts again the way I wanted to. And I really got back on that train. And I actually, so that went well. But, not having a job, not having an income was really like, well, what do I do now? And, we were planning on creating an LLC for the band, in order to write off certain expenses with equipment purchases and stuff like that. And and if we got merchandise going, we're going to have to report that in taxes, because if we sell, a certain threshold of that stuff, it has to be, recorded and, pay taxes upon and stuff. And, there's always the possibility of Patreon and stuff, and you got to pay taxes on that. And it became an impossibility because I didn't want that to interfere with my unemployment collection.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so thank God for that package thing while it happened, because I was still living in Ann Arbor, which is the most expensive city to live in Michigan, and I think it's in the top 10 in all of the country. Um, and the rent there is not cheap, so I still had the rent to pay for like 6 more months. So I just hoarded all that unemployment money and my rent, and it finally, I've been out of there for a couple months now, but I don't have much left, and right now the unemployment, it had been extended. Yeah, I'm just the regular unemployment. The extra benefits ended in July. The extended time is taking me to the end of December, and I don't know what's happening after that.
Yeah, it's like,
So
who knows?
maybe, yeah. When I got laid off, I was like, all right, I'm going to focus on my band because I have time to focus on this. I'm going to focus on school because I really wanted to, wrap up this degree before I'm finishing, or before I search for a new job. But at the same time, it's like, who's hiring, and I don't want to get hired in. That's not safe to work. And, this is a time where, like 1 in 4 people in the country are either unemployed or making less than $20,000 a year or something. So it's like, the market's not great. So I was like, I'm going to get the MBA first and then search for a new job. But, that has kind of interfered with monetizing the band. And, it's not like the end of the world. We can still make the music and put out the demos and stuff. But as soon as you start getting money involved in it, like, I don't know how much you get paid for, listens on Spotify or listens on YouTube or whatever. And I'm sure that we wouldn't have enough where it really makes a difference. But the big difference could be if we have, a Patreon account and if we have merchandise sales, because that could be kind of significant. And I'm not expecting, thousands upon thousands of dollars, but it could be hundreds,
Yeah, something to like at least put some money in the pot type of thing. And I'm thinking that there's, especially with all of this going on, that there's more and more options, because I even saw like an advertisement for another Patreon like service called Buy Me a Coffee, and it was like kind of a similar setup but with the extra jargon. So it was kind of more like, it almost felt like more donation based rather than subscription based, where it was like a hybrid of the two. So I'm like a Patreon would be cool too, because you could give like your Patreons like the exclusive download for whatever or something like that.
Yeah, maybe they get like a free shirt when there's a new shirt out, or maybe they get like maybe early access, or maybe eventually once we start doing mastered quality recordings, they get access to the demos and hear how they originally sounded or something, like these kind of like bootleg versions of it or something.
Yeah.
That would be neat. And, there's different rewards and stuff, or maybe even signed merchandise. That's always a common one. That
would be good.
It's easy for me to write my name on something and then, worth something in the future. Maybe it's not, but I mean, like I've looked into it just a little bit, and I was surprised to see like Ed Sheeran is like a spokesperson for Patreon because he uses it, I guess. And it's like, you're like one of the best-selling artists of the
I don't know if Ed Sheeran needs a Patreon anymore, but I mean, maybe he got started on it or something like that, or who knows.
Yeah, it could be. That could very well be. I don't know his whole story all that well. He's not my forte. But yeah, the other thing that screwed up was, Ian and I had all these tickets to see so many good shows this past summer. We were going to see the Megadeth and Lamb of God tour. We were going to see Ghadorah for the first time. I was going to see Primus. He had tickets to see Judas Priest, the Rage Against the Machine reunion. Like, there's so many good ones, they just all are pushed to next year. I mean, yeah, well, no, thankfully they all got rescheduled for next year. And hopefully that happens. But yeah, right now it's not looking so great.
Yeah,
With
because this
the
virus is
way that
just
the
ebbing and
pandemic
flowing.
is still going.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So
Um.
yeah, that's kind of how the pandemic has really been screwing with us. It's really slowing down our progress, I should say.
Yeah, but I'm proud of you both for like at least pumping some stuff out there, so there's like stuff to listen to and
Yeah,
things
and
like
that's
that.
I think the number one thing that fans want is to hear what we do and what we sound like,
Exactly.
And I'm eager. Like every day, I'm like, oh, another song done,
Yeah.
And Ian still has his job, so I'm a little bit on his schedule in that regard because I can't finish a song if I don't have the guitar parts yet. But
Right.
he does, he gets busy with his work and then he does his guitar stuff and then it's all good. But yeah, I need to, get on myself. It's so funny. I told my classmates this semester because I've had a lot of video chats with group members and stuff for this class I'm in right now. And I was like, yeah, I'm unemployed, but I am no less busy. It's so funny. Like your schedule just fills with things.
Yeah, like hobbies and whatnot. Yeah. And then obviously like
yeah.
writing all these songs and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and that's really, like every day I do stuff for the social media, and we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and then our YouTube page. So every single day I'm posting something. So that takes maybe an hour to come up with something and post it on all the things and get the formats and the links all working right. And like you've probably seen our pages where sometimes it's just filler stuff where I'm playing a song on the bass or Ian's playing a song on the guitar that's not even our own. It's just other bands that we like. And sometimes it is some of our own stuff, like we're pushing out one of our songs or something, or maybe it's our equipment that we're using or our instruments. And so that stuff takes time and thought and energy, and then to connect with all the fans and like actually accrue a fan base, that takes work too. So there's been several hours where I've spent on these social media sites just getting people to follow us and listen to our music and interacting with other groups and bands and metal fans and stuff. And it's honestly pretty rewarding. Like I've seen so many people from around the world as our fan, and it's like, wow, really appreciate you guys. And some of these people are doing cool stuff themselves.
Yeah, because I even saw like a couple comments on like your videos on YouTube and like saying like, people saying like, oh hell yeah, like love the bass part in here, or like I love hearing like the bass like really in front of like a mix and stuff, because you don't hear that very often. So it's like it's cool to see like you got like over 30 likes on some of them, and
yeah, and we're very appreciative of that type of stuff. And like we've been at this. I made a video the other day about our 100th day mark, so we've only been a band for like 3 months.
and I would say we're making pretty good progress.
Yeah, and I'm really thankful for that. And like you said, just the reactions from some people, and that actually brought me to another point, is that not only do me and Ian write the music, so far it's been mostly my songs, and Ian has contributed some solos to them, but I've been doing all the mixing and the mastering, or I haven't mastered things, but I've been doing like all the engineering and the mixing of these things, and then I said I've been doing all the social media posts and all the marketing type stuff. And then so that's honestly like that's like 3 different full-time jobs.
Yeah, you're wearing all the hats.
yeah, and then and I'm sure every underground band is doing that too, but it's just people don't realize how much work it is and how much different skills you need to have. And we've established that I have a film degree, and so I have some experience with editing videos and audio stuff. So, that kind of helps me out. And obviously, I've been doing music for 11 years now. And, understanding that I don't have a huge base of theory knowledge, but I know how to make music. And that's all you really need to know. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot going on. And like I said, I work out 4 days a week, and I have, 2 classes per semester for my MBA. And it's, not having a job did not grant me more time, I guess I should say.
Yeah. But at least it gave you time to like,
to do what I like doing, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess,
because like I said before, I was having trouble, working out, and it took me forever to get music done back when I was, working full time. So, I just took this opportunity to get stuff done, I guess.
Yep, there you go. Well, as we kind of close out, I wanted to ask what was the reason behind the band name.
So yeah, that's actually a good question. I guess when Ian and I started the idea, we didn't have any clue what the band name was going to be. But I have actually like a real specific criteria for what I like in a band name. And I like, 2, 3, or 4 syllable, like just maybe 1 or 2 words. Oops, I hit the mic. 1 or 2 words. Because like there's just so many band names that just aren't catchy out there. They're too long. They're too wordy. And yeah, so I have this idea where I like shorter, kind of catchier band names. 3 words or 3 syllables. 1 or 2 words or something. So I started thinking of a whole bunch of stuff, and some of it was like and I would pitch stuff to Ian, and he would kind of give me his reaction. And then I came across like I was thinking of different monsters and stuff, and so I was like, because we both of us really like Godzilla movies, and King Ghidorah is one of like the coolest monsters out there. He's
for sure
literally like what is he, like this interdimensional space god monster? Yeah. He's like not even native to the earth, and like
and he's
3 heads that shoot lightning out of his mouth, and he's a dragon, it's just all these metal things all in one. And I was like, when I told Ian about it, I was like, Ian, I've got a name, and I want to be pretty adamant on it. And I told him what it was. I did so much research for this too, because like coming up with a good name is just so hard, like
even coming up with a name
it's one of the most difficult things.
Yeah, I went through probably 18 this podcast has been through 3 name changes, and even before that, I've had like lists this long. I'm like, nah, that doesn't sound good. Nah, that doesn't work. And I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with anything? And it's like, what do I want? So so we came up with that name, and it's like this is the embodiment of so many metal things. And sure, in the movies, he usually does lose to Godzilla, which is really funny because Gojira is like the Japanese word for Godzilla. And there is a very popular metal band called Gojira. Yep. And so we're like, I don't want to like say that we're ripping them off, because we're not. But I think it would be super cool if like people started maybe comparing and contrasting us to Gojira, or maybe we go on a kaiju tour where it's like Ghidorah and Gojira on tour together. Gojira and Ghidorah.
That would be like a dream come true.
And then you could have like a section where like Ian does like a guitar battle with like their guitars, so it's actually
with their guitars. Oh my god, that would be that's just like a total pipe dream basically right now. But that would be awesome. That would be really cool if that happened. But anyway, it's just a very metal thing, and it fit the criteria of what I like in a name, where it's 3 syllables and memorable, and people even recognize what it's from. You're the 4th or 5th person who said something like knowingly what it was.
Yeah, and I even love the font and like the style of the graphic for the logo, because it reminds me of like the old like Godzilla stuff.
That is exactly what I was going for, and like that was designed by my brother. He drew that for us.
Well, shout out to him, because it was really good graphic design. Because it just brought me back to like the '80s, or like that weird like time of those monster movies. Like just seeing that.
Yeah, and that is exactly what we were going for with that design. And that's what I told him too. I was like, I'm going, these old movie poster style, and, he hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, you really did.
So,
yeah. Well, I wanted to thank you for being on here, and this is your opportunity to kind of like pimp your social media stuff. I'll definitely include links. I'll include links for them down in like the description when this episode comes out. And
awesome. Yeah. So yeah, we are on everything. We are at Ghidorah the band, and that's all one word. So that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And then on YouTube, you can just search Ghidorah, and that is the channel name.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining me, talking about the band and your whole.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It was good to. Yeah. It was good to talk to you again, and hopefully the fans like this too.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm sure maybe once like things calm down and that you can actually possibly do a show or something, then we'll.
We've talked about, we'll have to do like an update podcast or something and see how things are going in a few months, because we didn't even talk about what plans we had for the future yet, and we do have a lot of stuff cooking, and getting a full band together to play some live shows is definitely on the table.
Perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to having that episode as well. Having you back on.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right.
Yeah, but thank you for listening, guys, and have a good one.
Yep, thanks. See ya.